boys and girls, welcome to Captain Sports 2.0. We are, of course, we're doing the audio and the video. So if you see that my lips are moving faster than the words, that's just because of the audio not being as fast as video. Anyway, folks, we have a very, very packed show this evening. We're going to do it nice, short and sweet like a donkey's gallop. What are we going to talk about? Well, very, very simply, we're going to start off about Liverpool. Not should they win the league, not should they just handed a title, but what they have done quite badly in terms of especially PR and just being kind of a bit nasty. We'll also say that West Ham, my club, did something quite nice. So we'll look at that. Of course, we know that yesterday, Iseult, they were the champions, the Tajikistan Super Cup champions, like we predicted, like Double M predicted. He's not with us tonight, but he did call it yesterday. If you heard the audio and you got kind of behind them, you'd be quite happy with that. So again, they won last year the League Cup double in Tajikistan, Super Cup champions, beating Hujan 2-1. Okay, what else do we have? We have the virtual Grand National horse race that took place. We're going to have a chat about that. And of course, the new Irish head coach, well, not really new. He was new before, but now whatever. We'll talk about that in a moment because Mick McCarthy is gone and Stephen Kenny is in. With us right now to talk about it, to start it all off, of course, we have the editor-in-chief of Heart of Football, Mr. Andrew Flint. He's all the way in Tumen. Andrew, how are you doing?
Not too bad, Alan. How are you?
Good, surviving. Jesus was arrested in Moscow. I'm still not in jail yet. And of course, we go all the way to Dublin to our regular contributor, our legal Iseult Cody. Iseult, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
And how is Simba?
He is currently asleep on the floor, not interested in anything I have to say.
Well, we won't wake him up. Iseult, we've been talking with Andrew and the boys, of course, how things are. What's lockdown like in Ireland at the moment?
I think we're all adjusting quite well to it here in terms of people seem to be, for the very most part, complying. It was a little less compliant when it was kind of more informal. So now that we've been told, look, you need to lock this down, people are taking it quite seriously. And I suppose the big thing here is, unfortunately, the spread of corona here has been largely around a large number of nursing homes. So I think it's hitting home to people, the number of vulnerable people. So look, we're going a little crazy. I measured the walls of my own house with an app the other day to check they weren't moving in. But apart from that, we'll all get through it.
Okay.
This is now my life.
We'll do our best to survive together. So we're going to, Andrew, we're going to start off with you. Liverpool made quite a serious gaffe when they've asked the UK government to pay 80% of their non-playing staff's wages. Now, the players, as we know from the English PFA, they're not taking cuts just yet. Now, we know in Russia, a lot of coaches like Valery Karpin, who's just had his fourth daughter of all, born yesterday. Congratulations, Valery. And he's taken a pay cut. A lot of coaches have taken pay cuts. But, you know, and also non-playing staff have also been looked after by minded clubs as well. I know personally that Lokomotiv are continuing to pay people in full, so they haven't dropped anything at all. But Liverpool made a huge gaffe. So tell us about that and also about this the PFA statement as well, Andrew.
Yeah. I'll start off first. It's very important to make it very clear they are far from the only club to take advantage of the furloughing system, where they are effectively being bailed out for what is actually a pitiful amount of money. And this is the part that I find really distasteful. It's a difficult time for everybody, and football clubs are businesses. Just because they have huge amounts of money coming in and probably more going out for most clubs, it doesn't mean that they aren't still businesses. They employ thousands of people, but they are applying for this along. Spurs are doing this. Newcastle are doing this as well, and they are not the only ones. And if you actually look into the finer details of how much money we're talking here, you've got to remember this is up to £2,500 a month. That's it's the maximum that you can claim for this furloughing scheme. So it's going to save them less than £1 million a month. And their wage bill of all staff is £25 million a month. because obviously the playing staff is a huge amount more. So it goes against the odds of the whole ethos they've built up. And I'm not saying for a second it's not a genuine ethos. They care about the working class people. That's the ethos of their club. And then they go and do something like this. And, you look at the owners, you've got owners of clubs have hundreds of millions of pounds, billions of pounds in some cases. And yet they're asking to be bailed out by the taxpayer for what is actually a marginal sum in the grand scheme of things. And I just find it very distasteful.
I mean, I agree with that. I mean, Liverpool of all the teams, all the clubs, I would have been, unlike Andy Mack, I'd be quite happy to see them win the English Premier League. I mean, they're a club that, they represent a lot of good. They've been through some tough times. They've done some not such good things as well. I mean, we talk about Hillsborough, we forget Heysel. And it was, okay, there was equal blame on both the Juventus fans, on the Liverpool fans, huge amount of blame on the UEFA and the Belgian authorities for playing in a decrepit, falling down stadium. So there's no two ways about that. But the Liverpool fans charged and were pushing the wall down on top of the Juve fans. Now they've skated away from that. They were terribly treated with Hillsborough. Liverpool has had more damage done to them, and Liverpool as a city has been more damage done. But this seems a step maybe too far. But there's a kind of a real bang of Americanism on this, or maybe I'm reading this wrong.
Well, I think I'm actually very surprised that Liverpool owners, the Fenway Sports Group, I'm very surprised they've actually done this, because they've actually struck me since they've taken over as very aware of the importance of the connection between themselves and the fans, far more impressively than a lot of other owners. I know my allegiances with Manchester United. This is not an attacking Liverpool specifically. It's the owners specifically, not the players. Jordan Henderson has done a huge amount raising money for the NHS, just like Harry Maguire has said for Manchester United staff. And this is what I think is so blazingly obvious. The best way round to do it is this. Player salaries are very high, but they are contributing a huge amount of tax. £200 million worth of tax a year comes from Premiership footballers' salaries. So the way round to do it is don't change the salaries, but encourage the players to donate, which is what Manchester United players are doing at the moment. I'm not for a second laying any blame with Liverpool players. And as far as I'm concerned, no football player needs to take a pay cut, but they should, I think, donate what they can. And that's the way round to do it. The government doesn't lose tax money, and there's goodwill all round.
No, that's a good point. Iseult, kicking off to you, as a lawyer, I mean, you'll be aware, contracts and so on are supposed to be sacred. So a player by contract doesn't have to do anything. But we know your club Spurs, I mean, they also are looking to take advantage of this scheme. But there are also players who are giving back. There are players who are giving back and helping out and so on. Should this, in morality, are players obliged at this time to hand part of their salary to other people within the club or in the community?
So there's a few kind of aspects on this. I would suppose my first thought would be that no one should ever follow the lead of Dan Levy in terms of behaviour. If that's your moral compass, how Dan Levy approaches spending or how he approaches football spending, stop and think about it. From the point of view of footballers' contract, so in terms of their rights, you could argue this is force majeure, so it's essentially an act of God. It's outside their control. What impact does that have on their contracts? From their point of view, there's a willingness to work. They are prevented from working as a result of legislation, so they can't go and play. In terms of donations they would make, and this is not casting aspersions on footballers whatsoever. It's a good thing to do both from a moral point of view and often from a financial point of view.
Okay, so if we...
I don't like hearing arguments made.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I was going to say, the one thing I don't like seeing is arguments made about footballers being such huge contributors, because we've all seen in the past how many footballers have very clever schemes where their money is going offshore and it's not necessarily going to where people think it is. But at the same time, I think we're seeing a huge amount. We're seeing, actually, to speak of Man United, Rashford, I think 20 million.
Yeah, he's contributed. He's not actually put huge sums of money, but he's helping feed the younger children with I think it's about 2 million kids he's helping.
The scheme is basically, whatever way he's contributing, they've raised through that charity. And I think there might be other footballers to feed the families. It's like the funding is huge. In terms of a feel-good factor, yes, there's a sense of pulling in together. If footballers aren't taking pay cuts, then there are other ways they can give back to their communities. And I think that actually is a very good point, that's something to look at. Footballers are in a different position to, let's say, Premiership rugby players in the UK. Those clubs are going to be financially ruined with the lack of gate receipts.
Yep.
Liverpool, if there aren't people coming in through the doors into Anfield, that's not going to bankrupt them, you know?
Well, this is the whole thing, that the amount of money we were discussing here before about Russian clubs. I mean, most of the money that they have comes, like in Russian clubs, comes from a single, like the city or Gazprom, for example, or Lukoil, or whoever it is, a single funder. English clubs is coming from Sky or media. Yeah. Rugby clubs, for example, in Ireland as well, is coming from a central pot. And I heard today as well, the GAA look like they're going to have a 60 million shortfall this year, or starting next year. So that's horrific for these organisations that depend on gate receipts, depend on punters coming through, and that the players aren't on these huge amount of huge salaries. You know, it's kind of like, I don't know. It's a very, very tough one. I mean, what I want to bring up, actually, just one thing about footballers. The news that broke today about Kyle Walker. Have you guys heard it?
Yes.
Naughty boy.
Social distancing goes wrong in Kyle's house. I mean, oh my God.
Himself and his friend, just so people know, himself and his friend, they brought two workers, ladies of the night or whatever. Well, they said sex workers, but didn't say they were men or women, so I presume they're women. And they came to his house for whatever work, some sex party, according to the Sun. And he's been made to apologise for it, and there's an investigation underway now, or will be underway, from Man City. Is that common in Manchester, Andrew?
With two women, possibly not. Oh dear, it's how do I put this? I mean, some people just don't use their brains, shall we say? Now, using sex workers, if that is your choice, that is entirely up to you. As far as I'm concerned, it's none of my business. But to do it when you are in the public eye, there is absolutely zero chance that this is not going to get out. Even if we were not in the middle of a global pandemic crisis like this, even without that, it's idiotic beyond belief. You just simply are not going to get away with it. But when you add in we laugh, we shouldn't laugh, but I mean, the social distancing, it's going to get hung around your neck. I don't understand how you can be.
If we look at, like, in the last week alone, from Kyle Walker's point of view, just from a basic intellect, we had Jack Grealish had to come out and apologise for his breach. And you're just going, people know you, they see you. Like, sex workers aren't generally known for their discretion in certain circumstances, like tabloid newspapers. Like, think about this for a second, Kyle. And as a point, people are going to be annoyed by your breaching of the guidelines if you're going to go meet your friends. Then add in that level, and you just go, like, I hope Manchester City decide to fine him heavily and give the money to charity and make that their way of making an example of him.
Well, you know, Iseult, I think this is a good example. That is a very easy way for good PR, and quite frankly, I don't care if that's the only reason why they do it. It does not matter. they can come out of this the right way around. It's about the actual activity itself. It's the stupidity and lack of thought.
Yeah.
If he can be honest and open about it, and City can get some good PR, everybody wins. Let's move on and let's actually deal with what we really need to be discussing rather than silly mistakes like this.
Yeah, no, I agree. Listen, look, we're going to have to move on quick because we're running out of time. So before we go about the Grand National, I just want to say a quick hello to Alex B. Alex, how are you doing?
Howdy, I'm fantastic. How are you?
Good. You look fresh and you look kind of like a geisha girl.
Because I have the sunshine on my face. Sorry.
There you go. Sorry, I just...
Alex, you've been called many things, but I very much doubt you've ever been called a geisha.
Yeah, that is a new one. That is a new one.
I meant
I believe back in Moscow it was the Spice Boys, was it not, Alan? And now
wait, hold on a minute. Taking a turn.
Alan, I think, Alan, you're the one who should be under the spotlight at this point. These names are...
You never know what it's going to be when you...
Yeah, I know. I had to stop coming up. Sometimes these names pop into my head, and when they go up into my head on air, it's a disaster. But anyway, we're very, very quick. We're going to run around because we have one questioner coming in as well, one viewer coming in to ask a question. But Iseult, before we come back to you, Alex, Iseult, the Grand National, the virtual Grand National was run off a minute to kick them because this is capital punishment in its finest. Why should that not have taken place, and what was wrong with it?
Okay, so let me go with my favourite topic, gambling and how gambling companies operate. Cheltenham has managed to help spread COVID-19 by going ahead. What they have essentially done here is they've taken advantage of people who, like all of us, are sitting in our homes, people who already probably have an addiction to gambling. They have no other form of outlet. Unless they're watching Belarusian football, which they may be, what else are they betting on? The only other thing they can bet on is virtual games and a virtual Grand National. Yes, they donated money to the NHS. What they also did was these same people will need the NHS facilities in years to come as a result of gambling addictions. But the bookies only care about one thing. And I just think it's really sad that people tuned in to watch a virtual horse race. No. Like, I'm going to put a saddle on my dog and send him up and down the corridor for half an hour and find it much more interesting.
Well, look, I'm with that. One thing, like Alex, okay, I'm not going to talk about horse racing. You spoke about Billy Joe Saunders. Now, Iseult is our boxing expert. You gave Billy Joe Saunders a kicking the other day. Can you explain to Iseult why you gave him a kicking?
I wish a woman...
Well, obviously it was a joke, so it wasn't as bad as initially one would think it would be. But at the same time, it's kind of not really something to be joking around because there are people who, suffer from domestic violence and stuff. So it's really not something that he should have, with his following, that he should have made a joke about. That's what I think. Watch
Clarissa Shields' video response to him. It's brilliant.
Oh, I will. Okay, Alex, that's what you have to do. Okay, Alex, quick one before, because we're going to bring in a questioner right now. Alex, a simple question for you. At the moment, who have you got for capital punishment? Who would you like to punish?
At the moment, I would like to punish the entirety of the World Wrestling Entertainment yet again, because why not?
Okay.
It's always... I can look it up right now, and there's going to be something that they did wrong. There's just
okay.
Actually, you know what? Vince McMahon.
Yeah, kick Vince. Well, Vince did bring us XFL, so that's. I'll give him away with this. So
one would argue that that's actually a good reason to take him to capital punishment.
Yeah, he's a big man. Don't be afraid of him. Okay, listen, we have going to Derek Cantamoya. Derek. How are you doing? You're joining us from Lockdown Central, I believe.
Yeah, lockdown. Fully locked down.
Listen, you have a question. Who have you got a question for? It's about Liverpool, I believe.
I don't know. It's for everyone, I guess. But my question is because I've been hearing rumors that this lockdown and everything will be like a minimum of 3 months.
Uh-huh.
So I'm wondering, what's the best way to end the Premier League? Is it ending it like that Liverpool gets the league? Or cancelling it like people? What do you think? Your opinions and what do you think is the best way to?
Great question, Derek. Okay, I'm going to go straight to Alex B. Alex B. In 30 seconds, how should the English Premier Football League finish off? Should they follow the NHL or what should they do?
Absolutely. They should go on lockdown and then have like a giant sort of big playoffs like they're doing in the NHL. So they should have every team in the playoffs this season.
Okay, just a straight knockout like we said, a cup format.
Right.
Okay, Iseult, 30 seconds. What do you reckon? What to do?
Knockout as well. I think it'd be cruel to just cap the season, do something, give Liverpool an opportunity to manage to lose it at the end.
That is reason enough.
Okay, Andrew, for you.
I was going to say something different, but that is actually a tantalising prospect. We give them a 50-50 chance of losing it. I was going to say, look, let's have a festival of football, cram a few games in together, and just have a burst of action. But I like the knockout better because I do think the season needs to finish somehow. I definitely not cancelling it all together.
Derek, do you agree with that?
So a playoff sounds good.
Derek,
It sounds good. It's the first time I'm hearing such an opinion, but it really sounds good.
Okay, good.
Can you get me?
Yeah, loud and clear. And listen.
Yeah, it sounds good.
That's important. Perfect. Listen, Derek, thanks to you. We have less than a minute to go. And we don't have injury time, sadly. So what we're going to do is we're going to say goodbye for now. We'll do a little bit extra after this goes off the air and stick it up on the audio pod. So I'll go quickly and just say thank you very much, Andrew Flint.
Most welcome.
Iseult Cody, thank you very much as always.
Thank you very much.
Alex B, thank you very, very much.
Thank you for having me.
And Derek Cantamoya, thank you for jumping in at the very end to give us the most interesting question of the whole show.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for having me. All right. Goodbye.
Thanks, Derek. So, folks, that's it for Capital Sports 2.0. We'll be back, as I said, we'll be back with a little bit extra quite soon. And again, thanks a million. Stay safe and keep it sports.